welcome to A Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. Today's episode couldn't come at a more ideal time, as we're joined by Nia and James from Ideal Day Family Brewery. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello, hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us! So today with us we have Nia and James from Ideal Day. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you. In case people don't know, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves? Why you're here today? Hey!
Sorry.
That's
encouraged.
That was brilliant.
I
I
encouraged
love
that.
That's Larry.
Bit
His
of cat
introduction
visitor.
goes, that's Larry.
Yeah, sorry, our cat just decided to join us for a second. Might be able to explain it better, I don't know. So we're based in Cornwall. And we're a family brewery, so it's just me and James and then our two boys. It's been 2 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, just over,
Yeah. And I think when we started, a big focus for us was how the grain's grown and the quality of the ingredients. And then I think it's just developed more and more from there.
Yeah.
And
more things have come into it, really.
yeah, more things come into it. We kind of make classic British beers with a bit of a...
Yeah, I think we started out focusing quite a lot on kind of almost like Belgian styles and like our own ideas around like brewing traditions, and then actually it's naturally morphed into more British and kind of that crossover between like British and European styles. But
I think each time that you brewed, I mean, when we started, there was a definite. You always had this dream beer that you wanted to make, and it didn't quite fit into the breweries, and it was always going to be like the first beer you made, and that's field beer. That's field beer, and then it's almost like the more you kind of remembered how much you loved. Nick
can explain for a minute.
Yeah, we'll get rid of the cat. Sorry, we thought we'd locked him out, but he's really good at getting back in the house. But yeah, I think when we started, the big thing we wanted to do is it was just like, we're going to start the brewery. Like, this probably is not, like many things, the best time to do it, because we had like a newborn and a 2-year-old, and the beer scene, the beer industry wasn't, it's looking ropey, but we were just like, we want to do it, and we really want to do it exactly how we imagine it. And so the first thing was making a beer like field beer, where it was something that was just your dream thing to make. And then each beer you've kind of like remembered how much you love making beer. So then it was like, I'll do like a mild, and then you're like, God, I really love milds. And then it's like you've kind of got to rediscover it, and I've been able to discover it as well, because I was never I drank beer, but I never really understood it. So I'm kind of at the same time learning about beers, figuring out what I like. So it's really lovely. It's kind of we're just like a family brewery, and just kind of making beer and paying our mortgage.
It's about as complicated as that.
I love that.
I think I think you're absolutely right, and actually hearing it like that really makes me realise that I think when we started, the world was so doom and gloom, and not that it's much better now, but it's different doom and gloom now. But this we kind of started in our heads probably like 3.5 years ago. So kind of heavy COVID, and then OT was just born when we actually had the keys in our hands, and actually it was a lot more like, if this is the last bit of brewing we get to do, let's not leave anything like out there. Let's just try it all.
Yeah.
And then as we survived another month. We're like, oh God, this is great. We can kind of spread our wings a little bit, and just finding our language, because I think for us it's about brewing. Like, what we do is about the act of being people who make things, and that facilitates your life. It's really that simple. Whereas I think a lot of breweries perhaps have a hook, or have like a kind of brand identity that's very specific or forced or manufactured or whatever else. It's just like, I don't know, we just quite like making beer and being a brewery, and it's kind of as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
In terms of, I quite like where people's names come from, like either like the brewery name or the beer names or anything like that. Like in terms of Ideal Day, where did you come up with it? Did you always know that that's what you wanted to call your brewery, or were you sort of like, did you kind of discover it as you built up this plan?
Well, I don't think it was a name that. Well, it's a Cornish word, or like a phrase, I guess. So
People say ideal a lot.
yeah, so ideal's like, you just say it about everything. So if someone like gives you a cup of tea, you'll go, oh, ideal. Like it hits the spot. It's just right at just that moment. Or if you help someone out and you'll say like, oh, I can be there at 10, ideal. Like it's just this phrase that you hear all the time. And then we kind of loved it because
it was down in Lagered, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When we were on the river.
Yeah,
so we live on the river, and then we were in the next village along that's got a tributary of that river, and it's a spot that at high tide, it's all surrounded by woods, so it looks like a lake as it kind of comes around the meander. We were out swimming, and we were talking about it, so we were trying to like it. Ideal wants to be in there, and then we were, oh, this is an ideal day, and we're like, oh, that's it. Okay, right, that's the one. Right.
And we kind of kept saying, we were like, we're not gonna. We want to be for someone just a lovely little moment, like a really nice day and a nice little moment of beer. Because, you always said it to me, like sometimes it's hard because like where we are, like we don't really like. Well, it's not even where we are. It's because we've got young kids, so we don't leave the house until like 5 p.m. So whenever we see people like enjoying our beers in the evening, it's like, oh, isn't it nice that like someone's had like a nice little moment because of something that we've made. And it's not anything big, it's it's nothing bigger than that. It's just that you love making beer and we really like getting it to someone and them just having that like little moment. Like I always imagined it where it's like you get like some nice bread and some lovely cheese and a nice bit of beer, and it's just like, that's what I want to be for people, like just those lovely little moments.
It's ideal.
Yeah, ideal, right? Yeah.
There you go, you're getting down with the lingo.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So it was an ideal day, and then we really wanted it to have family brewery in it, mostly just because to just remind ourselves, like, oh, we are a family brewery. Like we can't do it all. Like we can do, each day we can get these things done, but we can't. Like there's only 2 of us, so we can't suddenly do every single event or have a massive range, or like we don't have a web shop at the moment just because we don't have
there's literally not enough space
to pack a box. So it's kind of just like having the family brewery bit in there is just like a bit of a reminder of like, yeah, we are a family and we're running a business, and like we'll take it like day by day and just and also just like family brewery is one of these things that used to be a family brewery, and now lots of quite big breweries are seen as family breweries, and they're not quite because all the families left by then.
Yeah.
So we're like, we are genuinely a family brewery. Like you'll usually find like a scribble for one of the boys on the box, or like a bit of colouring in here or there. So
I absolutely love that. But I think we were talking before we started recording as well about like how I was saying about how like for me, I tend to like drink a beer and then be like, oh, the perfect moment to have this would be here. Or this makes me think, when I drink this, it makes me think about this particular moment. And just what you said right there about like wanting to be that good part of someone's day. Like I was just thinking the other day about how it was the first day. I'm really excited about the first day you get to go and have your outside garden beer.
Yes.
And the other day was that moment where I was like, oh, and I was ill, and it was like the worst thing because I was like, today's the perfect day to have the first outdoor beer of the year. And I ended up having like a non-alcoholic one. And it's just like you saying like you want to be that one moment for somebody really resonates with me and makes me smile, because I feel like that is something like those small moments of like something as stupid as like the sun is hitting the grass and it's creating one solitary ray of warmth, and I would like to go stand in that solitary ray of sunlight and have a beer and just be happy despite whatever's going on in the world for like 5 minutes. That really resonated with what you've just said there for me, so I absolutely love that. And I think like it's so much more meaningful, I think, like than just like a surface level nice name as well. So yeah, I just thought I know it's quite early for a tangent, but I was like throwing that in because I
no,
absolutely love that.
That's it. Like, it's so summed up. It's like, it's really hard to have like any control over things, and you have like an onslaught of information. So I don't know, it's just something very freeing and making everything as simple as can be.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's been nice about running our own business, is it's kind of like, okay, that's good. Like, we released a beer we really liked, and then we saw a bunch of people enjoying it, and it's like, hey, that's our win. Like, that's it. Like, that's what we wanted to do, and it's happened. And then it's like, okay, so, and we do think like that. When we're thinking of which beers we're gonna do next, we are kind of like, all right, close your eyes. Where are you? What do we want to drink? Like, what's the weather like at this point? It's a nice thing to think of those moments and it be not frivolous. It's like, no, there's like these tiny moments are actually really lovely things, and it's worth spending time, or like, running a whole business around it.
I love that more than I can put into words.
Well, speaking of moments, I've not had a beer in about 3 weeks because I've not been very well. So we've got Path of the Sun here, which is your field beer. So this is going to be my moment where I finally have another beer, and it's going to be your field beer.
Gosh.
And this should have been me getting into the path of the sun.
Yeah.
I should have been having
There you
this.
are, yeah.
So while we crack this open, we were talking just before we started recording about how it's labelled as a field beer, but air quotes, that's not really a beer style. So can you tell us about what a field beer is for people that are unsure of what that might be?
So it's essentially our own house style. It's when we were kind of starting the brewery, it was one very simple question of like, what is perfect drinking beer? Like, and for me personally, that was like 4 and a bit %, really crisp but very fruity, like very, very like direct in how it's brewed, like very simple and a lot of focus on the ingredients, and not something that like on first sip and first taste was very simple, and then as you drink it and as it warms up, it gets more and more complex. But you could both chug a pint of it and like nurse a little half of it for hours, and that didn't exist. And I'd had this idea in my head for ages, but I'd never actually had the chance to make it. In all the breweries I've been to, and also it took a while to kind of bring all these ideas together. So we had to give it a name, and because it's completely focused around ingredients, it became field beer. And yeah, I mean, it's the question we get asked the most is like, what is field beer? And closest thing might be perhaps like a Belgian blonde, or maybe like a saison, or maybe like a very dry pale ale, but it's not even any of those really. When you start getting into it, it is kind of its own thing, which is, I don't know. I talked to a friend of mine about it when we started, and talked about the idea of like, if you're a maker of things, like, what is the point if not to make something of your own, like, and to leave a thumbprint in the clay, and yeah, I think it's like it's the best beer I've ever made in my life. And there's been quite a few, so it's quite a nice one, really.
Yeah.
It looks so picturesque, and that's why like I haven't taken a sip of it, because it smells so beautifully.
Smells amazing.
It smells very Belgian. Like when you were saying that, it smelled very Belgian-y to me, and I was like, oh, I'm excited to drink it because that is what I enjoy.
Yeah. And it's been quite nice, like when we've been, at tap takeovers or events, and then we have field beer, and people ask like, what's a field beer? I'm like, oh, you tell me. Because it's kind of, it's nice.
We're waiting for someone to sum up in like 3 words, which we've not.
Yeah. I think Nat was close.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, yeah, I guess that's the thing though, isn't it? Is it's kind of, because it's our own business and it's just the two of us, we're just like, okay, like, we'll give it some time, like, we'll let people kind of get to know it and figure it out, and for us to drink more of it and figure out how to describe it. It's one where it's kind of like we changed the description
Yeah, we've messed around with it a lot.
Because we're like, oh yeah, that's a good word for it. Like someone will say it and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll write
yeah,
that
someone
down.
says snappy, and I was like,
Oh
snappy.
yeah,
Yeah,
snappy's
like
good.
snappy.
So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
also it's the beer world. I think it's getting better,
yeah,
but for a while it was really quite like samey. And you know, a lot that was coming out was, you know, New England hazy IPAs and in 440ml cans with exactly the same label, and you know, hopefully, I do feel like we're moving away from that, which is great because it stuck around like a bad house guest. It just wouldn't leave. And I think a lot of this, the thinking behind field beer and maybe like the first generation of beers that we made was like to go in a completely different direction.
yeah,
You know, like we all of our ingredients, you know, we can trace really tightly to like it's all heritage floor malted, like Maris Otter, and then YQ wheat from Fred Price in Somerset, and then all the hops come from one farm in Kent, and that's it in everything we do.
yeah. We keep
Um, so I think comparatively to the rest of the beer world, like for us it made total sense because we knew that ingredients was by far the most important thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't know,
Yeah.
440 mils of hazy stuff didn't feel like anything we wanted to
Well,
make.
we were really lucky because we started at Crocodham Farm. Dan, who's the chef there, gave us. He kind of started with a kit, and then he had sheep and he had the restaurant and making
And the bakery
plates
and the
and a
cafe
bakery and stuff like
yeah.
that. So I think he was quite happy when we were like, "Oh, can we borrow the kit?" And he's like, "No, go for it."
Yeah,
He's like, "Oh my god!"
he was so generous, but it also was a sense of like, oh, thank Christ.
So he was so generous with us. So we started small, which I do think, I mean, really small. So I think that gave us that.
Like living room small.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like tiny.
But I think that was a really nice thing actually because it meant that we got to take a bit of risk, and we knew that in the first year, like people would be they'd be open to what we're doing because it's our first year, so it's kind of like, oh, what are they going to do? And we're like, okay, it's our first year, so let's like go for it because we can't get that year back. And then like I think that helped a lot with being able to do field beer from the get-go because we were able to.
It's the beer probably. Yeah, we probably made more field beer.
Yeah, we've made more field beer than anything else. And then the Lagered beer is the second. Scenic Route Lagered beer is the second. So.
I feel like it's so drinkable. It's very, very drinkable, and it makes me feel like it does give me like holiday vibes, like in a way of like when you go on like European holiday. It brings back those like really happy. I don't have a care in the world. I could just sit there and drink a bit, like you said, that ideal day. I'm like, I'm just gonna sit there and have a beer and not worry about anything else that's going on. I don't have to work. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit and enjoy this beer. And I do understand what you mean by it's quite like, how do you label it? Because there are so many, like, I could see when you're saying like, oh, you could describe it as this, or you could describe it as that, but it is so drinkable. Like, and that like the dryness of it as well is so like just absolutely just perfect for me and my taste buds personally.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
I want to be in that patch of sun you were talking about, Tori. Like, I feel like I just want to be in that patch of sun.
I know.
Drinking this, like, to me, it's really sessionable. Like Tori says, that dryness makes you want to go back to it. Like, I feel like I could drink a lot of this, and it would make me really
too
happy.
quickly, quick. Like I would be like, oh,
yeah,
right.
And I think also because
but I'd be sad because it would be gone, and I'd be like, oh no, I don't have any more.
I think it's like it's one of those. I don't know. I think it's like the best recipe. I think it's the best recipe, the best idea that's come together. Like exactly where I wanted it, and I don't know. We're quite sort of nervous, anxious people sometimes,
Yeah, sure.
and you know, we kind of think, oh, you know, if this is, in some ways, it's actually pushed us to to be more experimental, because the presumption is, you know, we've got no like backer, there is no cash, like it's just us. We started off with about $2,500, and that bought us like enough ingredients and a little bit of time and to spend on the utilities to make the first 2 brews. and then we sold those, and then we used the profits to buy the next lot of ingredients, and we just
keep
have like
doing
edged it stepping stone by stepping stone. But it's meant that we sort of had this view of like, it's got to be everything we wanted it to be from day one.
Yeah, we kept kind of saying, like, the thing we would say a lot is, if it was like, okay, can't do the brewery anymore, would we look back and go, and then we made all the right decisions, like everything we did was exactly how we wanted, even if it meant that it didn't work out, because we think that way. Because our brain goes, okay, tomorrow if it ends, and it's like there's absolutely no reason for it to, at all. Nothing looks that way at all. But I think it is nice because we are just going to do it exactly how we want to do it. Because to me, the worst case scenario is that I was like, oh, like, do you remember when we had that brewery and we did it exactly how we wanted, and we sewed our own banner and we made zines?
That took us so long.
For the
banners take forever.
Yeah, we had for the
We did the London Craft Beer Festival.
Yeah, we won
Bristol, and we won the Raise the Bar thing.
Yeah, the Raise the Bar
in UK.
So we got to go to 3, and then we were like, oh man, we need like a well, it was funny because we were like, well, what do you have at these things? And you're like, oh, you have like a banner and like, I guess business cards. And do people still do business cards? And like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, like I always loved where I grew up in Warrington. They used to have at the museum like a big exhibition of trade union banners, and I loved them. And like when I was a kid, I just look at them because I just loved all the different materials. And I was like, we should do that. And we were like, yeah, it's genius. And then we didn't realize like the material was thick. And then I had used like,
we did it on canvas as well, didn't we?
We did it on canvas, and then all the material was like.
Was there old curtains?
Some old curtains, some like one
Christmas material.
Yeah, some Christmas material, like
there was
like the boys' clothes,
well,
like all things that like we looked at and
just
reminded us as like family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we realised we had to like hand sew it. We're just like, gosh.
Oh, no.
And then we started making
business
cards.
Yeah, so then we were like, well, if we have a fabric banner, it'd be weird to have like some. We were like,
tacky
we
cards.
were like, we can't really afford that. But now we've got all this material, so we were like, oh, we'll just make business cards from that. So we like stamp in the business cards. Jesus.
Yeah.
But then I think.
But then it was the same for the keg badges. Like we literally make all of our keg badges by hand out of wood.
Yeah.
And like, what are we doing?
That's awesome.
Like it's.
I was going to ask you about that because like they look amazing, and you were saying about how like you're makers, and so was that a good decision?
Do you know what?
I genuinely think it was.
I think for like 2 things it was good.
You think so? Yeah, good. I mean, I think they look great.
Yeah, for two different reasons it's good. Number one, I think it's like we just want to remind people that like it's someone making the beer by hand. And that is even more important now than ever.
Yeah.
And we wanted the keg badges to, I don't know. Yeah, we wanted.
You can connect with it more.
We wanted it to be clear, like when it's stamped, we wanted to be like, yeah, like someone made this. And also, I think for you, it's quite a good thing to do as like a little break, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like in between brewing or like paperwork, like one of your friends said, because when you get stressed, you like whittle. So I remember, so I remember one of his friends being like, James gave him a spoon. He's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "What?" And he's like, "You made a wooden spoon."
They're not good either.
No, he's
like, they're real bad.
He's like, "You all right, mate?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You whittled quite a lot of spoons,
completely
just
cut
like
up,
loads of spoons." I'm absolutely fine. I don't know what you mean, like 10 whittled spoons in his hand. So I think like you being able to do the keg badges is that there's a little moment where you're like making something by hand. And then, like, I mean, we love it because sometimes the people use the wooden keg badge for then the kernel stickers. And, like, you started at the kernel.
Oh, yeah.
And kernel's, like, a massive influence for you. Not just, like, beers, but, like, the way Evan has kind of run a business.
Yeah, totally.
The way he thinks. So it's so lovely to, like, then see it being used for the kernel.
Usually the Cock Tavern.
Yeah, and then people will send it back, or if we go to events, like we'll collect it and sand it back down. But a lot of times people just take it with them. Like we don't have any merch, and so it's kind of nice that it's like if you know the people behind the bar and you want something, it's like have it. Like it's there to be enjoyed.
And they can be like I think also it's like it's like seeing the amount of like detritus that the beer world produces, like just. Like beer mats and coasters
Yeah.
and bar runners and t-shirts that people wear once and throw away. It's just like there just doesn't need to be more of that stuff floating around the sea. So that ours are, you know, completely compostable, obviously, because being a bit of wood, but also reusable. So that they're sort of 12 mil thick usually, and we can sand them back and restamp them with the next beer. And I reckon, I tried to measure it, it's pretty hard, but I reckon we could probably get about 50 to 100 uses out of every cake badge. Yeah.
Wow.
Which would be ace, but we don't get any of them back because everyone keeps them.
Yes.
Which is totally
They're
fine.
so
'cause,
beautiful.
why
Everyone
not?
wants to
I was
keep
gonna say,
them.
it's cool and unique as well, isn't it? Because like you said, there's so many different coasters and everything else. And like that's the thing, is like you take a coaster and within minutes, depending on where you are, it's probably, especially if you're actually using it, it's probably starting to fall apart from the moisture that's on it and everything else. So it's like that I feel like that's something that makes you kind of stand out and sticks in someone's brain. And yeah, like you've made it, so I feel like it has that personal connection a little bit more. And like I knew that you guys were, that you had won the Raise the Bar, and when I was at Bristol Craft Beer Festival, like I think I was at both sessions. I think the first session you guys had like had to like tap out before the second session or something, or there was somebody who was on a break or something, and I was like literally like, oh, I can't wait for the second session because I like really want to try the bit. And there was like the patch, the fabric patch, and I was like literally like, I want one of those so bad. And it was because it was so interesting and exciting, and I was like, this is not something that you normally see all the time. And so I have it, it's put away with all my other stuff because I want to be able to kind of make a fun thing. But it was so cool, I was really excited, and I was like, I can't wait for the beer to be back on so I can go and I can enjoy it.
Oh, that's ace.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, the Bristol was great. I think we got because you know we don't get out and see people that much, and then all of a sudden at Bristol it was like, holy moly, like we ran out of beer really quick.
Yeah.
And we were just not expecting that in the slightest.
Yeah, because sometimes we just sat there and we would just like look at each other and be like, especially when we were sewing that banner, to be fair, we were just like, that was
a lot of like,
we were like
the end of winter, start of spring, be like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and we were like, are we completely going the wrong way with this? Or is this
it's not like you look out in the beer world and see lots of other people sewing banners.
No.
So it's not like, oh, that's what you do. Smart. Clever business service.
But then I just kept thinking, oh, but then that'll be a banner we'll have like forever. And then I think I always like that. Like I always like it when you're like around your like grandparents, or like, and there's all these little things. So I always like the idea of us having bits of the brewery and being like, oh yeah, we sewed that. Like,
little hobbits used to have a brewery.
Yeah. But I think that's it. It's like, it's just like everything does have meaning because we have to put a lot of effort into it. So it's like, well, if we're going to put the effort into it, let's really put some effort into it. Really get our fingers to the bone.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, no, it's nice.
Were you talking about being on the farm and then, you know, there's a bakery and a restaurant? And like, to me, that sounds like heaven. First of all, it's like beer, bakery, restaurant, animals, like that all sounds absolutely amazing. When you made some of these beers, have you kind of gone, oh, let's do, like, have you ever done any events or anything like that where you've done food and beer pairings with like the restaurant, for example? Or is that something that's ever come across your mind as something that like maybe you could do with some of your beers?
Yeah, I mean we've done, last summer we did bits and bobs in the courtyard within the brewery, with like they had like barbecues on and kind of had like a whole like lots of big spread and everything. I mean I don't think we've done a huge amount in terms of like food pairings and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that comes from like us not being able to get out and do a huge amount of stuff. You know, like we don't have like a sales team or a marketing anything. And you know, we did Bath last weekend, which was like our second family trip together.
Yeah.
Where like we literally all went, like got a hotel room for the night in Bath and did a tap takeover at Sickle, and then went to see customers on the Saturday and stuff like that. And it's lovely because then the boys can come and they can see it and they get so excited. And
yeah, we can't really do too much. I mean, I think the main thing is that a lot of the customers that we have, like North Street in Foy, it's more, I think because we have a real focus on our ingredients and that is like the base of it. I think a lot of like restaurants kind of see that and kind of see the same thing that they're doing.
They see the same values, which
Yeah.
I don't think are kind of common in the beer world, you know.
Yeah, so it's like these small, like North Streets are just the most lovely place.
Oh, it's amazing. If you're ever down this way, let us know and we'll all go to North Street because it's just heaven.
And it's like, I guess it's when we see our beers matched in those places and just fitting in.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, oh, that's like a lovely thing.
We just want to be the nice glass of beer on the table. Like,
yeah.
I think in the past have done a lot of like big beer food pairings at like Hawksmoor and all these places, and like
that's been
that was fine, and it was like quite showboaty, and like trying to grab eyeballs, and I just feel like we just have it. Yeah, we don't have time, but also like there's just a better, like there's a newer, more interesting way of doing these things. Like some of our best customers are restaurants and like bakeries. A lot of little bakeries and stuff like that, and
neighborhood places, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're just like this is their beer.
Yeah,
like this is the one beer they have, and that's great. We'll happily just quietly get along being the beer, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I just feel like always will travel for beer, food, good people, good vibes. Yeah, so I'm like, you're like, let us know when you're down this way. Like, we'll travel for that.
Oh,
so absolutely.
We can't go anywhere. So
yeah, you've got to come to us.
We'll travel to you. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll come to you. So we're having a little nose around your website, and we were talking about regenerative agriculture. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Do you want to go? So essentially it's a principle of agriculture that in the past we've essentially, or in this sort of post-war era past, we've been taking from the soil at all times. We've been chucking loads of fertilizer on, we've been throwing pesticides and herbicides and depleting soil and pulling nutrition out of it. What regenerative agriculture tries to do is actually try to leave the soil in a better state than when it started that season, and each year try and build fertility back into the soil. And there are lots of different principles around it, and we're not farmers, and we very much are trying to create a market for farmers. Is the best way of trying to put it. It's like we're trying to buy as much of their stuff as we can because that'll help them do what they need to do. But essentially it's to not overly plough or to not use much tillage and not to be spraying chemicals that deplete the soil and destroy the microbiome. And they produce wonderful, wonderful grains. But for us, really, like it all started with deliciousness and flavour. That these things do these wonderful things as well is fantastic. But actually, it was like the best tasting wheat we could find was grown by a guy called Fred Price in Somerset, and it is objectively amazing. Like it's just got this like beautiful elegance to it, and so it hadn't been used in brewing at all when we started using it. It'd been used in bakeries, so like Landrace in Bath, where we were on the weekend, they use loads of it. Coomshead Farm, like mates up the road, we've got an amazing bakery there, they use loads of it. And I was like, this has got to cross over. Like this beautiful stuff has got to work. So that's what goes into absolutely everything we brew with. Has a quite high proportion of raw grain, and you know, with all the decisions we've made, you know, in terms of the ingredients we use, they're all sort of propped up by principles of either heritage varieties or regenerative agriculture or, you know, really considerate farming, because those are the things that make deliciousness.
Yeah.
And we're after the deliciousness. Like we know if we put all of our energy into the plants and picking the best plants, that they'll make the best tasting beer. And then that supports these great farmers is a bonus, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because if you think of like how much a bakery would use grain wise, and then how much a brewery would.
Well, it was talking to a lot of farmers, and you know, they were like, well, what's the deal with brewers? Like, why don't brewers care about the grain that they use? And it's like, oh yeah, they do. They you know, they care about how it's malted. It's like, yeah, but they don't care like about how it's grown or what variety. It's about yield. It's about, you know, extraction. It's not about like the ecosystem it came out of and the impact it has and its effects downstream, you know. And then chatting to farmers, and they're like, look, you go out and buy one loaf of bread, or you go to the pub and have 4 pints of beer. Like, it's the impact that brewing can have is
massive.
way bigger than bakeries. But you've got to get people on board with it. So like that's why we've done some collabs with some pretty big breweries now, with like Verdant and like Lost and Grounded, and given them all our information and all of our knowledge about brewing with raw, regeneratively grown grains, and let them do a beer together on their big kit and tell them everything we know, because
and Verdant were amazing.
Verdant were great. Yeah, they were 50% raw grain. They really like went for it, and they got great results. And it was a lovely beer, and that has a huge impact. Like bigger than we can have, because we've got no ambition to be big at all.
Yeah.
But if 1% of a big guy's output, 1% of their grain usage is regeneratively grown, or even 10 or 15%, like the impact is massive. So. But yeah, we're not farmers and we're not like ecologists, but we kind of know people who are, and we're like, okay, you tell us what we need to do, and they're like, use as much of this as you possibly can. We're like, great, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, follow the bread, isn't it?
Yeah.
Follow the bread. And you're like, okay, so
follow the good bread.
Where's the bread at?
Well, it's incredible. Yeah, I feel like my diet in the last few weeks is like, we've been having soup a lot strictly because I want to have bread, and I'm like, I can have bread if I have soup in bread.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, let's go.
That's how it
works. But like, I just as you were talking, I had a question that was like linked to this anyways, but I think as you were talking, it just made me even more curious as well, because like I'm wondering if part of the reason why some people don't do it is that like, they just don't know where to start. And I guess you were saying you were talking to farmers, like, how did you go about sort of meeting these people? Like, is there some place that you went to, or is this just kind of how do you go about it? Like, so say I was just starting my own small family brewery startup and I was really interested in what you were saying, like, what kind of advice could you give somebody into what they should look for and how they should go about making some of these connections to be able to get into some of that? Like, is there a place they can go, I'll connect with farmers that are doing this, or is it just kind of looking what's around you and approaching them, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of learned a lot about it through the Southwest
Grain Alliance.
Yeah, the Southwest Grain Alliance. So I can imagine every area has a similar, and that's like anything, it's like a group of people all discussing it, and they have meetings sometimes and stuff like that. But in general, it was just when we were at Crockton, obviously that was a big focus for Dan, he runs Crockton, he's the chef there. So we kind of had, you always knew the principle.
And also,
it wasn't like
out with bakers and chefs.
You hang out with bakers and chefs, so there was already that. But then through the Southwest Grain Lines is where
we found
we
the
met
people
Fred.
who were actually doing.
Yeah, we met Fred, and then it was like, I mean, to be honest, it sounds like it's a complicated thing. We're like, Fred, can we have some wheat? And he's like, here's some wheat, and we're like, fab.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I guess once you are in that kind of like group, then it's as easy as ordering other things. That's the thing about it, is it wouldn't take someone much. It's just making that decision that you'd go, okay, it's going to cost a bit more, and
people are using it, so there's not like there's not a precedent.
Yeah, and then more and more people, then the
knowledge base grows.
Yeah, and then it's the norm. And then, like you said, it's if a big brewery, it's not like all of a sudden you do absolutely everything. Like, we've done that because we wanted to,
and we could,
and it meant a lot to us. But for other people, it's like, we'll just try it with one that feels right for yours, and then the more comfortable you are, the more you probably keep ordering. But yeah, I think like we had the Southwest Grain Alliance, and that was was really
if you're, say for example, you're in, let's say, Lancashire, and you're starting up, and there's a bakery near you, and they are doing things, they're interested in their grain, which hopefully a good bakery would be. Go ask them where they get it from. Yeah. Like, it's as simple as that. It's, and they'll put, we get it from maybe this farm or maybe this like wholesaler. Okay, fine. And you go down the chain until you find someone with some wellies on, and, hopefully they're doing the right thing. But it does take time. And we, I think we've gone through 2 different malt suppliers, and, we changed because we could get, like, we moved to Warminster because they're more heritage varieties in a more traditional way. Like in terms of how it's floor malted, and it's closer to us, so it's our closest maltster. We moved hop suppliers once because we went from one single farm Brookhouse, but they unfortunately shut down. Then we moved to Hukin, and again, it's that, like, I think there's always there's like an impenetrable layer sometimes within the sort of snobbery of making things, where it seems from the outside looking in, there's a lot of like pretension and a lot of like kind of using language which makes it difficult for people to understand what's really going on, as those kind of like gatekeepers to the whole thing. And then when you get actually past that, you realise that those people who are trying to keep you out, or that language is trying to keep you out, is entirely not relevant to actually what's going on. And you find people who are just makers, you know, and you see that in the beer world, that there are just people who just want to make stuff, and they are more than willing to tell you everything they know because you sound like you're interested in making stuff too.
Yeah, that's the thing that I found really, because I hadn't worked in the beer world before in any way, and I don't think, I was always like so surprised about like how open a lot of people are with things like that. Like, you think it'd be quite like closed off, and it'd be like, oh, this is like the secret recipe, and it's like couldn't be further from the truth. It's like, come watch me do it. You know, and that's like such a lovely thing, because I guess I kind of like thought of the beer world as like maybe very, you know, lots of blokes and lots of guys, and it being very closed off. And I guess I see a different side of it, because I'm seeing all the kind of makers. I'm seeing all the people who are like really passionate, who want to share those things, which is such a lovely thing, because it just shows that how much like people care about what they make.
I feel like hopefully this would be the ideal, and I feel like I want to say the word ideal more now, so apologies in advance for any puns or anything. But I feel like the ideal situation here is that somebody that is in a decision-making position who maybe felt it was intimidating or inaccessible before to look into this type of thing, maybe like didn't even think it was possible, like hearing you both talk about this, maybe it makes it go from being something that's like yeah, it would be nice to have, but I'm not sure this could ever happen, to actually it's more accessible now hearing you both talking about it. And it's something that, if nothing else, maybe they could even just look into. And like you said, even just replacing a small percentage, even if it's not a whole percentage, I think that's the thing, is it can be intimidating if it seems inaccessible, because you're not familiar with it, you don't know where to start, you know, you don't know how to approach it. And I think, like, you know, again, I've not brewed I've not worked in beer in that regard. I just do a podcast, that's it. But in that regard, I'm like, it makes me feel like, oh, it went from being something that I'd be like, I wouldn't even know how to go about that, to like, okay, that makes it sound even just that much more accessible. So hopefully somebody listening to this that maybe has that decision-making power could go, oh, it's not as inaccessible as I thought it might be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like,
I'm just going to take that bit of life advice: follow the bread.
yeah,
Just little ducks, just
like
going
that.
around like.
there you go.
Following the bread.
Follow the bread.
Because also, I will say, I always find bakers have always the best recommendations.
Yeah,
if you go to a
bakers.
city, you go to a baker's, it's like you'll find the best bars, the best restaurants, the best wine,
The best coffee.
Yeah, the best coffee.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
like,
know the coffee and they know the beer really
yeah,
well.
they really well, because the staff
There's
are so tired, and so they always have good coffee.
When you're testing out the grain, is it like literally, do you go, how do you measure that? Do you go, does somebody make a product like bread or something, and then you go, oh, that tastes really good in this? Or like, how do you test what is thoroughly the best grain?
I mean, how do we do it really? I mean, it was just like, this should work. Like, it was more of a question of, why isn't this happening already?
Yeah, like it's in the bread world, like you would, like in bakeries, you would expect, if it's a sourdough, if it's a really great baguette, you would expect the flour to be better than what's in like Hovis. Or if it's like wine, like obviously you have the exact same thing with grapes. So it's the same kind of thing. And I guess with like, there's always been a focus around the hop side of things. And we have those three kind of ingredients, and I guess for us, the variation comes a lot from like the different yeast strains, because that's the thing that always changes for us. Like the wheat might stay the same and the hops, but actually the yeast is what you kind of play with and move around with. So it was kind of like, well, we'll start off with like a good foundation, and that's what the grain does. It kind of is.
And
it gives a lot as well. Yeah,
it's
so you get the mouthfeel.
We talk about like amount of flavour versus depth of flavour, So like, I want our beers to be very like feel at the start very, very simple. Like beer should be drinkable. Like it took me like 15 years to work out what that meant. Like, because I was like, of course it's drinkable, it's a drink. And then beer became so undrinkable. I was like, oh, yeah, it's not. And it's the simplicity and elegance should be at the start, and then depth of flavour comes through like later on. And you do that by putting the best ingredients in just the right place. And we kind of see it like, like if someone's making a chair and they're taking stuff away, and it's the point at which it's still functional, but you can't take anything else away, but you've got it. And I think the wheat for us was just like a really simple question of, this is the best wheat that bakers are telling me they can get. And, on so many levels, bread and beer are the same thing. So like, why is breweries completely like negating the importance of grain and how it's grown?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was one of those things. It's just like, it was no brainer, and then it turned out to work.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, is it's not just like, oh, we used good grain and then that's how it makes like a good beer, because like a big part of it is like, it's that having the kind of healthiest plants, but then it's thoughtful brewing. You're not coming into this like with no knowledge, like you've had quite like a long career in the beer world. So it's taken all of that.
Old,
It's old. But it's that kind of thing. It's like you take the healthiest plants and have thoughtful brewing, really caring about it, using all your knowledge and experience, and then that creates that depth of flavour. That's what you get from those two things. Like you could use amazing ingredients, but then if you just brew it completely wrong, it's like, well, you lose it. So I think that's the thing. That's how we worked out. We were like having like a meeting. I mean, it's just just talking in our living room. So I don't know when it becomes a meeting and us just talking. But our boys have like
it's a meeting.
We got on our meeting hats, and then we start meeting. But our boys have this like little whiteboard with a chalkboard on the back, but it's at like kid height, and we like are on our knees going like, okay. So we put healthiest plants, yes, and then brewing, and then this equals is like the most.
Yeah,
like,
and then we have to take pictures of it, because when the kids get back from like school and nursery, they'll literally rub it all off. Be like, "Fuck, that was the big idea."
No, that was our business plan. Don't rub it off. We're like, oh, no. We're like, we need to.
I like the idea that they're part of the meeting, though. Like, they're there, you're like, all right, okay, we're all in the meeting. Which one of you are taking the minutes?
More bananas.
I
want more bananas and cheese. I want cheese.
You're like, and you were like, noted, duly noted.
Yeah. You need your nappy changed. Okay, off we go.
Yeah, that's
Okay, good.
Talk to HR about that, but that's fine. But I remember when I said to Rowan once, which really made me laugh. He was like looking at we were by the river, and there was like two kids playing, and he was just doing that like toddler thing where they just like stare. And I said, Rowan, that's none of your business. And he was like, we make beer. And I was like, no, not in that sense. It's none of it doesn't. It's fine. And he was like, we make beer. And I was like, yeah, no.
That is our business.
I was like, yeah, that's right.
No, but it is. Okay, fine.
It's kind of a phrase we use. I'm like, doesn't matter. You're free. We're going above and beyond.
That's just tickled me, the fact that you're like, it's none of our business. He's like, no, yeah, you're right, our business is beer.
Yeah.
And then you're like, who have you gone and said that to?
Oh, we have to. Like, before they started, like, nursery and school, I'd have to say to the person, like, oh, we have a brewery, because they would just talk about, like...
You don't know what he's going to say.
Their parents must drink so much. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And then when it came to like the end of the term, we just turn up with like a case, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are the best."
They're like, "Oh,
some beer and
I think I want to drink another beer, because I feel like I've already finished the majority of that one, and I'm like, I want to try another one. Should we try Scenic Route?
Yes,
because I'm like, that's the one. I'm like, oh, I'm very excited about that one. Beer. While we're pouring that, like in the sense of, I meant to ask you this earlier as well. Like, is the grand vision in if it were up to you, like, would you want to see, your kids start like kind of working in a family business type of way? Like, I think for me, that would be really, like, I think that would be a really, obviously if they were wanting to, but I feel like that would be a really exciting thing raising kids in that setting, because I feel like you could teach them about the responsibilities around drinking and all the really positive things from that aspect as well, and like hand that down to them? Is that something that's ever on your radar, as to like, ideally would you want to hand that down to them?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about having the business and kind of talking to the boys about it is it's a really, like, it's such a nice, like, concept to explain to them about, like, the world, where it's like, we make this thing and then people give us money for that and then we pay our bills and then we enjoy doing it. Like, it's so lovely that the boys see us doing a job that, like, we enjoy and we're passionate about.
I love we got to take them with us, like, last weekend, and we had like a whole weekend in Bath. It was brilliant.
I mean, that's the thing, like, that's like one of the biggest reasons we started,
because both of our dads worked away when we were young. And I think,
and it's nice having work trips and like bringing them along.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And when we started the brewery, like, a massive reason we did was because I worked out, like, if I go back to work, like, I'd done like a year back in work after, when Rowan was like from 1 to 2.
Yeah, or 10 months.
Yeah, and I was like looking through all figures, and I was like, oh, I paid like this much in childcare, and I earned the same amount. But every single time he was unwell, I had an unpaid day, and I still had to pay for nursery. And I was just like, oh, we should start the business now, because I'm already not making money. So we might as well be not making, like, if we're not going to be making money, it should be for something.
Something you love.
Something that we enjoyed.
And that was the nice thing, is it's like being able to like be there with the kids is such a lovely thing. And like, I hope the boys see us as like, oh, they really loved what they did, but they spent lots of time with us, and like they could have done more, but they chose to do that because it was the right balance. And like, I think it's like a brewery's a great one to start with, in terms of like when you're like 17, 18 and you're just doing some work. And if they like, who is it that I can't believe I've forgotten her name. Batham's, is it?
Oh, Alice Batham.
Yeah, and you were saying that she kind of went and worked at loads of different breweries and then
she
came
worked
back.
with John at Thornbridge.
Yeah, and I love the idea of that.
She's sort of like fourth, fifth generation or something.
Yeah, she's like 5th generation. But I think that's such a lovely way of doing it, of being like, no, go and like work with other people, and then if you do love it and if it's something that you like, then like, yeah, this is here for you. But if you're like, oh, like, I wouldn't ever want them to do it because it's like, oh, well, it's our family, so we have to. I like the idea of going, pick anywhere in the world, we probably will know someone at a brewery, and like go and like start by packing boxes. Like, you know, when you started at the Colonel, you made a sandpit was your first job.
No, that was the thing that got me a job at Beavertown. My first job was making boxes, and I chopped the end of my finger off.
Oh yeah, that was
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, literally, like,
like
day one of volunteering, tape gunned the end of my finger off, and then I had to put my hand in my pocket and pretend like I hadn't chopped the end of my finger off, because I didn't want to be the guy who did that.
Well, is that because you're like, oh no, it's cool, everything's fine.
Yeah, you said cool. I've not done that before you even asked. And so I was like, well, you're not gonna let that guy back in, are you? So I had to hide it the whole day. I only told Evan like 5 years later. And I got my job at Beavertown because I ran sandbox just at the right time. But yeah, like, I think that the boys, like, they love it, but like, they love it because there's like shiny things and tractors, and Daddy loves it and Mummy loves it. If in later life they want to do anything else, then 100%. But you know, if they do, great. Like, and also like being in Cornwall, it's, you know, there's a hard reality of this place. Like, it's not all buckets and spades and ice cream. You know, it's a really, really hard place to live and exist and get a job and do all these things and have like a decent, not even decent, just livable life. You know, like the disparity between rent and mortgage and house prices versus wages is astronomical. So like, if we can provide something for them.
Yeah, even just for them to work while they like work things out. And I mean, that's the other side.
Or even for other people. I mean, like, we don't employ anyone at the moment, apart from Max, I suppose, but like, she's freelance, our designer. But yeah, like, it just to provide anyone with a decent job will be great.
And be like, if it's sports day, you got it off. If it's, you know, just to like be like, it's the family brewery in the sense
that's what you learned, Block, wasn't it?
Yeah, I used to work for a design company. Like, Tara was the designer, and I think it was genuinely the first time I'd seen like a woman have like her family and her business and it just be together. I'd always seen this like really heartbreaking thing with like mums having to like go back to work And if they went back to work, they felt terrible, or they didn't go back to work and then they felt like, oh, I just worked so hard in my career and now I'm taking this big break. And Tara was the first person where it was like the kids finished school, they did their homework while she was finishing off and they left. And it was so lovely to see it in this kind of really calm way, and it just being like, yeah, like this is what we do. And like she always said, like the only reason she could ever do that was because she was in Cornwall, because they couldn't suddenly take like 2-3 weeks off. But on a Wednesday, if it's sunny, it's like, okay, let's go to the beach, let's have a little mini holiday. And I think that is a big thing in Cornwall. It's like,
we lean into that hard, don't we?
Yeah, we lean into that in a big way, where it's like, okay, like we're not suddenly gonna go away for like 2 weeks and spend lots of money. We have to have like these little holidays, these little evenings, like grab the picnic blanket and like we'll go to the beach or down to the river. And I think that's a big thing in Cornwall, is it's kind of like in both of the way of that there isn't like the kind of having a job is a not complete definition of who you are. It's the first place I've been where when you talk to someone, that actually doesn't come up that quickly. And if someone answers it, they usually say like 2 or 3 things. So I think in the same way for the boys, like maybe they want to be brewers, but they might be like, yeah, like I work at this restaurant and then I help at the brewery and then in the summer I do this. Like I think everyone's kind of got used to the idea that you don't have a career. You're not like 18, you're like, I'm going to be this, and then you're like, retirement. It's lots of things along the way. So it'd be lovely that probably at some point they'll work at the brewery, and probably lots of other people in different moments. So yeah, that was a bit rambly, sorry.
It's just I find it as a really like anytime I've talked to, you know, like a family that's kind of started a brewery and like they've got kids, they've got young children and stuff, like I just think of that, you know, that has to be, and I guess I'm saying this from the bias of being a beer drinker, I just think that's got to be a really cool environment to grow up in as well. And like you said, being able to just be like, you know, we're going here to do some business stuff, but also it's like, well, I can take the kids with, and like that's just got to be like a really cool experience for them in some of those aspects that you hope, you know, when they grow up they go, oh, that's a cool experience. But like I think as an adult now looking at that, like I'm like, oh, I wish I grew up in that environment, because that feels like such a cool environment to grow up in that regard. Like not that it doesn't have its own challenges and struggles and everything, but like I feel like that's got to be such a cool environment to grow up in the sense of like, because of how you can make yourself available in ways that maybe other careers might not allow for, if that makes sense. And the experiences that you can also help give, like some of the farming experience, like to say, oh, this is kind of, we focus on these things and these are the values that we have. Like that's something that can help instill that into your kids as well. Like in addition, I just think that's a really cool, you know, rambly response from me to say that, but I think it is genuinely like a really cool environment. And I'm like picturing, I'm like, oh, I wish I grew up in that environment. That's cool. This beer is also phenomenal. So I'm just going to say that it's got this like soft, subtle, like fruity, almost like a nectary type fruitiness that's in there. That is just like, oh, just beautiful. I want to say like almost like a peach nectar type, like subtle beautifulness to it. Yes.
So Scenic Route, we use all Hukin hops for everything we do, and their Cascade is beautiful. And it's very different to American Cascade, because American Cascade is very like the pith of like grapefruits and like pine needles and that kind of like Sierra Nevada vibe. Hukin's Cascade, like lot lower temperatures grown and a lot less UV compared to America. It's just softer. It's really, really soft, very, very fruity, very kind of like stone fruity. And then that, I knew I wanted it to have like, you know, it's lagered beer. It's not a classic lager, but it's very much like in that world. And the touchstones that I had are those like very grassy, very like sort of deliciously crisp kind of Czech and like German pilsners. And we put it with Goldings from Hukin, which is like very grassy, but also quite like old school, like fusty kind of like notes, which are quite savoury and quite weird. But when you need that kind of spectrum of flavours, you need that savoury with the sweet, you need the bitterness and the funk and all these things coming together. And together they've got a kind of almost like a SARS-like quality, where it's somewhere between the grass and the citrus and they kind of bounce off each other. And it was that we did field beer and Lagered beer, like Scenic Route and Path of the Sun, as our first two
Yeah,
beers.
they were our first
And they've
two.
pretty much not changed since the start, and they've pretty
No.
much been exactly the same. And it's about that wheat. It's about the heritage grains. It's about structure and simplicity, and that it's very simple at the start, and then opens up and opens up and opens up. And if we can do that as a kind of, you know, a principle of making, and hopefully with how we make, I want someone to be able to drink our beers and go, oh yeah, that's it, like an Ideal Day beer, like, and be able to take, like, you know, we have a lot of people say that, like, you know, our stout recently is like a very kernely style stout, and I'm like, brilliant, because that's like where I learned to brew. Like, it's a very different stout, and I think if Evan had it with, like, side by side, be like, no, these are very, very different beers, but in spirit it shows, you know, our beer should show the quality of the ingredients and the decision making we made, but also like the lineage in which we come from as craftspeople.
Seems like Big Spade is very much about where you grew up and your first experiences with beers.
Yeah, totally.
That's the
it's like the taste of those old pubs.
Yeah,
you know, like the old kind of like black country boozers, and like Bathams, who is like the beginning for me. Like, is absolutely like the touchstone, and like Sarah Hughes, like the Ruger Mild there is like, that was a massive like influence.
So
on
it's
Big
like,
Spade.
it's kind of like each beer. It is those little bits of like the history, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you learned to brew, or which beers you loved, or where we are now, or the places we're based on.
Yeah, and it's in all the names as well. Like, all of the names are so...
Yeah, I was going to say, I've said that before we started the podcast. I realised like how on the nose sometimes it was. Someone was like, how come it's called Big Spade? And it was like, it's a nice drink to have when you dig a big hole. Like, oh.
Well, no, it's because I've got... So the boys have got little, like, kid-sized spades, and I've got exactly the same one, but it's bigger.
We were like, oh, that's
and then Rome was like, it's Big Spade. And we're like, Big Spade.
Then we thought, the Big Spade for the double.
Yeah, we'll do little spade, or just spade. Or little spade.
No,
little spade.
Yeah.
Little spade's better for the mild.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, we were just about to release First Steps, which was, we first made it when Oti first walked.
Yeah.
So that's like First Steps. And then we've done Little One, which is also about the kids. And then, there's just been loads of them, really. They're just kind of notes in time. And I think it's quite nice to, I don't know, it's a very personal thing for us. So it just makes, it's not even beyond making total sense. It's just there's no other reference point. Like, we're so within each other's bubble that, like, this is where stuff comes from. And it's interesting, you know, talking to customers and like, oh, you know, your brand resonates. And we're like, well, what? We haven't really thought about it, because it's just us. Like, it's like, it seems so authentic. I was like, I don't know how we not do other things. It's literally just us being like, quite like wood. We should make stuff out of wood. Okay, cool, we'll do wood there.
Yeah.
I think I know Joe's got more questions and stuff, but like I know we're at the hour mark and everything. Are you all right for us to crack? Like, I kind of want to have the Hoppy Stout now, so
definitely.
Is it all right to crack the Hoppy Stout? Because I'm very excited.
That's one of our newer beers as well, so it's nice to.
Yeah, totally.
I was gonna say, I might save the Way Out West just so I can have that in my ideal moment. The next time it's my first alcoholic beer in the garden, that'll be the one that I have.
There you go. Made the moment.
Way Out West is from one of the kids' bedtime books. So they've got in Dr. Seuss has got this one called Sleep Book. And it's Way Out West in the town of Merced, the Hinklethorne Honking Club just went to bed.
Yeah, we've read the book quite a bit.
And
you might have noticed.
And I mean, I could probably do the whole book, I think, off the top of my head.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe not right now. But yeah, it's just like, it's just life happens. You know, like the things, you know, we are like, this is everything we are. You know, not in a kind of like, we're just this. It's just like, no, it's just, it's in some senses, it's almost like medieval in how we think about work, is that there is no work and not work. It's just people doing things, and some of our life costs money and some of our life makes money.
Yeah, sometimes we can just swap some beer for some
A flour mill.
A flour mill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's literally the next thing we're doing.
It's quite a lot of barter. It's quite nice.
Yeah. I went to go see where we take the kids bike riding, like a little National Trust place down like upriver from us, and at Lanhydrock, and sort of within the woods there's this woodsman who's got a sawmill, and he basically gets trees straight from Lanhydrock, and he's cutting our new the next batch of keg badges. And we were kind of costing it all up and working out how much time it's going to take him and all the rest of it. And he was like, "Oh, it'll be this much." And I was like, "Absolutely fine." Sends the invoice. Or if you like beer, and he's like, "I do like beer a lot." I was waiting for you to say something. I was like, "Beer it is then." Brilliant.
He doesn't want to be the one that says "Oh, beer."
Yeah,
so you're
I
like,
I mean, you need to sell that to make money. I was like, "Yeah, but beer's fine. We like doing that." It's fine.
Yeah, I love that. This reminds me of like when I first started drinking beer, and it's that I'm a dark beer girl. This is, the dark beers are where I'm at, and this reminds me of going to like some of my first beer festivals and getting a dark beer out of a gravity fed keg in the middle of a field and just being like, "Oh, this is really nice." That's the moment I'm having right now.
That's great. That's perfect. That's exactly it.
it was just the smell for me. I was just like, yeah, I'm in. Like, I was like, before I even had the taste, I was like, I am in. And I do think that I'm so like when you were talking at the start about when you're like, oh yeah, we went through a bit of a period where everything was like so samey. I think like I know that as a person that was like, yeah, I like New England and stuff. Like, I sort of fell out of love with it because there were so many. And it's like, you'd walk into a tap room and you'd be like, oh, hazy, 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 hazy. And then like one stout or something. And I feel like this is like the best of both worlds because it is that like hoppiness and the darkness and the roasty. Like, it was the roastiness. I was like, I'm in. Let's just have this. It tastes beautiful, as have the others.
So we were talking about Big Spade. I've got the print of Big Spade that came in with my bottles. If anybody's watching the video, where does this is this your designer Max that does these prints? Actually, did I see that sometimes like you'll put a different one in every now and then in the boxes when people order?
Yeah. So we when we have kind of a new release, Max will make like a design for it because we kind of like the idea of just being able to sum up the beer in these kind of images. And it's nice because Max, I met Max when we did like pregnancy yoga before we even had like a brewery. And then
Max is Maxine, by the way.
Yeah, Maxine.
Yeah, not just a guy Max at pregnancy yoga.
She has her own studio, which is like Forest and Ocean.
Yeah.
And she's just like an incredible designer, but also like she knows us so well because we kind of like when we had kids, we
did COVID together, like it literally as a bubble.
Yeah, because we had to like our family didn't live in Cornwall, and her and Ed's family didn't live in Cornwall, so we like bubbled together. So like we really got on. And she has this like amazing ability where she can go into like a charity shop. We'll go in together. And then I'll hold up like a polyester shirt and be like, "Oh, there's nothing here." And then she'll just be, "Oh, look what I found!" And it'd be the most beautiful, amazing thing.
I've got a friend like that.
And then she'll put it up on the wall, and you're just like, "Oh my god, how do you do this?" So we always knew we wanted Max involved because she just has like such an amazing eye for things, and it's the exact same thing for her. Like she works for herself, and she has to fit it in around the kids, and it's the exact same thing. Like she totally gets those like small little moments, but she has this beautiful design and creativity that sums it up so well. So we like send her bottles of beer so she can take some pictures of the bottles, and it's just she always just does such an amazing job because she just enjoys the moment. She's like, "Oh, it's great," because I like put it in my rucksack and I go for like.
It does help that they live in the most beautiful.
Yeah, they do. They live in Buxton.
Sorry. Buckland Abbey.
Buckland Abbey. So her husband, Ed, he's a ranger for the National Trust, so they live on site. So her little girl's always just like.
Doesn't everyone live in a monastery?
Yeah, she lives like she's like, "Oh, that's my castle." She's like, "This is not normal." Like, Elle, you've got to realise. you know, so she's in this amazing place, which she can kind of capture these things. But yeah, she's just
and design wise, she's just, yeah, it was amazing. Like, we kind of tried out different ideas and with people we've known in the past, and you know, when we were trying to work out what the aesthetic was, and then when Max was like, "Is it all right if I have a little like pass at it?" And we're like, "Yeah, of course, mate, like 100%." And like, there's like a proper skill of being a mum, balancing like life and young kids and everything. And she nailed it in like 24 hours.
yeah. She was like, "What about this?" We were like, "Yeah, that's it."
Yeah, like, cool, done.
Wow.
And it is understanding that
Nice.
like there's no real time structure in terms of when you can send stuff or when you can get stuff back, and there's no real like demand on having to have it ready for a certain time. It just happens as soon as it possibly can, and when it happens real quick.
Yeah.
And it's just like Max is just, yeah, she's a genius. She's
Yeah.
absolute genius. And like we've often like we've talked about like how our labels are now, and I think we kind of want them to evolve in the future, and kind of open up this world of like what is in her head.
Yeah.
You know, because like our posters are essentially like, the best way I've heard to describe it is like there is a whole landscape and a whole essentially like, you know, world that she's drawing that is the Ideal Day visual
and then
world.
all the posters are just these little kind of
Snapshots
moments within
you know?
this whole kind of tapestry that she kind of does.
I mean, it's
For anyone watching the video, I'll just hold up a
Yeah.
bottle so you can kind of see what
And
that
I think
looks
that was
like
the
as
thing,
well.
because the label, we did purposely keep the label the same for all of them, because we really wanted people to see it and start to get used to seeing us. You know, because with an ever-changing, like, sometimes you can go into a bottle shop and you can have a favourite brewery, but sometimes you can't find them. And in those first few years, we were like, no, we want to just, like, hold steady and people to really get used to, like, who we are.
And we had no money to spend on anything else.
No, and at that time,
because every new label, you know,
and we could only have Max for like little bits of time, and then as soon as we were able to like get a bit more money, the first thing we did, we were like, we need to have Max, and we need to like really let her be creative, because that's something you learned. Like when you were at Beavertown, you were the first employee. It was like you,
and then Nick.
And then it was Nick Dwyer, and I think you realised
we were best mates. We'd been at uni together.
Yeah.
So like Nick had.
Wow.
So my first homebrew bottles
Yeah.
were in Nick's degree show at uni, and he'd done a label on the bottle.
Wow.
So like the whole like what happened at Big Town was like no, we were doing that way before, like with like the homebrew back in the day, and what Nick really taught me, amongst lots of other things, is that when you find someone like that, like when you find a Max, you just go, yes, this is your thing, this is your world. Like I went to art school as well, but I'm in no way talented like Nick or Max are, and it's like they have it, so you give them space and time and anything they need to just make beautiful things.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted the posters, because we were kind of like, okay, well, the bottle, we're still trying to work out like how we bring that in, but still keep us at still keep it at the centre so that people can always find us, but add some more of that illustration that is lovely. That's why we wanted these posters, is because we were like, oh, Max is so good, like we need to give her a kind of something to be able to do that we can get to people. And it's so lovely when you walk into a place and you see them like framed and up about the place, because that was like a big thing.
When we went into land race on the weekend, and they had, so my mum who retired from being a GP and did an art degree, and then became a vicar. It was a strange career path. And then she did a load of lino prints.
Yeah, so
the branding.
Hazel did the initial
who's from North Street in Foy, so that's Hazel and Ethan's restaurant, so she's an artist as well.
Yeah,
lots of side hustle going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing.
I love all of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it's like when you meet those creative people, that's another lovely thing about having a business, is you can go, oh, like you can come on board, and then like we'll work out what that means. And I think that is with Max at the moment, like we're right in the beginning of that, of being like, okay, like we want to be able to have these, like have posters or make more things and have this kind of like a designer on board, but then working out like what can we make from that, where we're not just making things for the sake of it. But yeah,
I mean, but this is near through and through that like the beer world as it is not equal, and the presumption always is that like I'm the brewery, and Nia's the admin,
brewer's wife,
and it's bollocks, because actually when people start to understand what the brewery really is, it's like Nia's degree is in management of creative people, is basically in music management and putting on events and doing things where you're basically taking people who have great ideas and can't organise shit.
Yeah.
And essentially those people who have great ideas and can't organise anything achieve nothing, because you need someone who can give the structure and give the framework and basically plant it in the real world and make it happen. And like that's what you are to basically like me and Max and whoever comes on in the future. It's like Nia is the business. Like we're the fluff. We're the like nice adornment and like the wet bit where it all gets messy and there's like grain flying around. But really, like it is, this would not be happening. Like I think Nia could probably do this without me, but I don't think I could do it without it.
Well, no, I can't make beer, so it would be a lot of.
You just find someone who can do it. It's easy.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lovely synergy that's happening because I feel like what's really great as well is like with these labels as well. There's an element of like obviously it's incredible like talent there, but there's like the same thing with the beers and the label. It's like it's just like as you said at the start, it's just like that no frills, just a really good quality, just really good stuff there. But then the more it kind of settles, the more there's like, okay, that depth of flavor grows, and with your posters, that like creativity is sprawling more and more, and it's just like it's really great. And I think like you guys obviously work so well. I feel like me and my husband would never two project managers, and between us we're like I don't know. And I feel like there is that lovely synergy that maybe you probably don't see like the other half of like no actually I couldn't do it without you and I couldn't do it without you, and together you make this amazing like just such good quality, such good value, such good ethics. And I think it is so like worth people going out and supporting, and I think that is lovely. And looking at the future of it, so obviously we were talking about when you're on the farm, but like what does the future of the business look like in your ideal world? So that was not even intentional.
She just dropped them all over the place.
I can't help it, I just went for it. Like what does that future look like for both of you, in the sense of what you're wanting? Like if you could will something into existence, like what would you want to be willing for the business moving forward?
I think the big thing for us is what we're kind of working on at the moment is like bringing the brewery closer to home. Not that it's like very far away, but it's like 40 minutes away, so we kind of want to have it like on our doorstep. Like we want the ability to like walk down, or the kids to finish school when they're older and just walk to the brewery. And like we love where we live, like Lostwithiel's like this amazing town, and everyone's really like incredibly supportive, and it's such a beautiful place that we do want to be there. And then in terms of like size, like you always said, like I wouldn't want more people than like a dining room table. And I think that is like a key thing for us, is that we would want to keep it within that size. And I don't know, like the future, like want to do cask. But apart from that, it's kind of like just keep going.
Make your own pay mortgage. I mean, it's genuinely.
We always say that, like, but it's
that's it.
Like it's the least romantic tagline, but that is it. It's like if we can like make beers we love and then like pay our mortgage, we're like did it. So I think just do that, and then if we have staff on board, do the same for them. Like give them the ability to like do something they love, but also be able to be there for their family. And if we can do that, then that's great. But I think that's the biggest thing for us, like with the way we've kind of like grown the business, is it's been like proper small little steps. And at the start, like I remember you kind of like when we first started, you were like, okay, so we need to have like retail and bottle and keg and it has to be wholesale and distribution. And I was just like, there's no room for that. Like we have to pick like one. So it was like, okay, we'll do wholesale keg. And then we did that. and we got confident at it, and it was like, okay, I think we should do bottles now, and that's where we've got to.
Yeah.
Like, we do wholesale keg and we do bottle, and we have a distributor, and we've got beers to like Japan and France and Spain, and it's like, okay, that's
we still haven't quite wrapped our head around the fact that there's people in Japan right now drinking.
Where in Japan? Because I'm going to Japan. Where? I want to know, like.
I think, yeah, there's quite a lot of it in Tokyo.
Yeah. I mean, it's
it's
the line
just
of the
nuts. Like,
yeah.
How I don't even how we can begin to understand that.
So that's the thing. It's like the next step. It's the same as it always is, which is like just that day. It's like that. Like right now, this is what we're gonna do. So it'll probably be like the next thing is cask.
Yeah.
And then once we feel like, oh, like we feel confident with it. We've tried different styles. We kind of understand what we get. Then we'll be like, okay, we should have a web shop now. Like usually that's like the first thing you get, but it's just like, well, no, we want to do these steps and do them well, and there's no rush. Like if you take away, nothing against men, but sometimes with blokes in business, there's like this legacy or like a bit of like
confidence.
Oh, like it's not like an ego to it, but it is this legacy of like this has to prove to other people that I am successful, and then they get themselves into debt and they're stressed, and like like they always say like the like
it's Little Princes, isn't it? It's like the grandiose, like I must be all of these things and more.
But it's also this like you're the provider, and it's as bad for men. Like having two boys, I'm like, this is bad for you guys as well. Like I don't want like them to ever feel like that. But I think that kind of like, oh, you have to have like an amazing website and this tap room that's like huge, and then the stress of that. It's like to keep that business going. It's I couldn't comprehend it. Like we always look at each other going like, yeah, that would be crazy. Imagine right now if we had to do that. And I think actually, like, it both being our decisions is that there isn't that ego behind it, and the legacy isn't the brewery. It's like that we're good parents, so it means that we just take things like step by step. So in the future, I hope it's like we have like 2 staff members and they're really happy. And the breweries in Lostwithiel and people like our beers.
I mean, honestly, like my big aim is like to walk to work.
Yeah.
Like, that would be. I mean, that's basically what we're doing with moving the brewery to Lostwithiel. It's like 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes, and it's en route to school.
Yeah, and it's like cool. That would be great.
And it's on.
That's awesome.
It's on the river that we like. That runs through the middle of the town, and it's just the most wonderful thing on earth. I remember when we first moved here. When Jim and Katie came down, so like our best mates from London. Like I lived with Jim for years, and they're the godparents of our kids. And we'd only been in Cornwall for like 4 months, and they came down during the Easter holidays, and we sort of sat on the bank of the river, which is sort of like a beach in the middle of the town, and we were eating fish and chips, and they were like, "You guys are like going to be here forever, aren't you?" And we were about 3 months in, and we're like, "Yeah, I think we will be actually." And where we were sitting, you can see what will become our new brewery. And it's like that is, we talked from the start of like what happens if it ended tomorrow, and like had we done everything we possibly could have done in all the right ways, like, and to put the brewery that close to our community and our family, like that would be it,
Do you see yourself wanting to like open up for people to come and visit, even if it's not a tap room, but just like the ability to someone be like, I'm in the area, I want to be able to come and buy beer directly from you guys, or just interact with you, like, because I think that there's this thing of like, if you really enjoy a beer, you kind of want to see where it's made. Like, is that something that would ever be on your radar to allow for people to come and see, or do you think that you'd kind of go, that is just one step at a time, that's too far in the future, can't even think about that?
I think it's like, right now we're like
we just can't move the thing, but now all we're thinking about right now is like flatbed trucks and moving tanks and like lots of other stuff. I don't know.
I think it's like
it'd be nice to have. Yeah, it'd be nice to have people like. I don't think either of us are quite built for tap rooms and stresses and strains of that, because that's a whole thing. And like we are, like, I'm a very early morning person, and we've got little kids, and they're going to be little for a while. And when it's sunny, we really don't want to be indoors. Like we are, I'm especially a as soon as the sun's out, I am like jumping in the river and cycling off to the beach. Like, it's just there's no way you can keep me indoors. So I think, I love the idea of having, people coming to see the brewery and just not even see the brewery, just come hang out. Like,
yeah. Like
that. But
always open for that.
I don't think I think we're way off being anything kind of like customer facing is probably the best way of saying it.
I would love to have like what I think would be a really nice thing is that if someone was like, where can I get your beers in Cornwall, that I could give them like a really nice list of just lovely places that I would want to go. And we've already kind of got a bit of that. Because sometimes it's like, especially if you come to Cornwall, it's like, get by the coast, or go with Bob and Moore. Like, there's so many beautiful places. I'd be like, come pop in and see us and have a chat. But like,
we'll give you a list
you're
of where
in
to
Cornwall.
go.
It's like, you're in Cornwall, babes. You've got really pretty places. Go out and go to
can't
bed.
throw a stick for hitting a beautiful beach.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, come and say hi, and then we'll give you the best places to go in Cornwall. And for now, that's probably it. And then in the future, like, who knows? Like, the boys will be teenagers, and we'll be the last people they want to hang out. Yeah. We'll be like, we should get friends, right?
we sort of talked about like the next big stage for the brewery.
It's when they start secondary
school. Secondary school for them.
Yeah. So we're in the primary school years.
We're in the first year of first child in primary school, so we've got a while till secondary.
It's all colouring in and spot the dog. That's the era we're in right now.
Like, you want to be available for the school plays.
Exactly.
Well, it's World Book Day tomorrow.
Well, it's on Friday.
Well, okay. Well, they're doing it tomorrow because their big trip out on Friday is to the local dump.
Yeah. They go.
Oh, yes. Do I want to be dressed up as book characters at the dump?
No.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe we do.
I got the message through, and it's like Apple class. Like, that's
of course, their class is named after Brews.
The Apple class are doing World Book Day on Wednesday because they're going to the tip on Friday. So.
Taking on the best ever.
Yeah, so I'm glad I didn't get the days mixed up because it would have just been a full night's costume at like Bodmin Recycling Centre.
That's it. It would make for excellent photos, though.
I kind of got that they're not going to the tip in all their outfits.
They would have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Otis going dressed as a dragon, and Rowan's going dressed as a knight. So they're
great.
So that's our big news. That's what's happening with us.
I love it.
But that's, I think for us, like that is how you sum it up. It's like it's as stupid as that is the life and milestones and everything in the brewery and all of it. It's all intertwined. It's just, this is who we are and what we do. And, I think that the artificism of breweries had become so needy of attention because there was nothing to say. There was no continuity of people. There was no continuity of ideas or identity. Everything was for sale. It was all just disposable. And it was a reaction against that, against putting emphasis back into the humans who make things again. That, kind of that like stubbornness of like, no, we're going to do it our own way, and it's going to be the antithesis, really. And luckily, it's I don't know, it's stuck, and we're still going, and long may that continue. Yeah.
Right, so we've kept you a little while. Thank you for having a chat to us. Tori, have you got any further questions you want to ask?
No, I don't. The only reason I even asked that question was because you guys made me feel like I just want cooler friends, and I want a cooler scene. And I was like, are you guys like, can we travel and like hang out? Are you ever gonna open up your brewery? But that's that. I'm just like, I just want to come and hang out. So like, are you gonna like open up the brewery to other people so we can come hang out? But yeah, that was my last question, just because I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. I wish I were that cool.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't think we can.
Is there anything that you want to plug? Any new beers coming out that you want people to pay attention for?
I guess where can people find your beers is probably, if somebody wants to find your beer, like where can they go to find your beer is probably the most important thing.
The Sickle. They've got some great beers on the moment.
I mean, that's the thing, because we don't have the web shop. We don't have a web shop.
We can't sell anyone a bit.
But I mean,
do you know what we could do? If you've got a nice bar, or you drink in a nice bar,
let them know
about us. Yeah. Because actually, like we did this at the start with like we only did kegs, and actually a part of that thinking was, it was just after lockdown was lifted.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh no, we're going to make people go in to find, they have to go somewhere to drink with other people. Like, you're not doing this like in your house anymore. We have to go outside now. It's been 3 years.
Get out.
Yeah. So, so yeah, like, but yeah, I mean, for example, we did a great event at the Sickle on last weekend, which was amazing. And Alex has just got the coolest little bar you've ever seen in your life.
If
Like,
you're ever in Bath.
legitimately, like walking inside of his head.
Yeah.
And it's perfect.
We're going to be at Sheffield
Beer Week. So we've got a tap takeover
Oh,
at the
gonna be at
Harlequin
Sheffield
and
Beer
Rutland
Week.
Arms
One of my
and
faves.
We're in Wonky Labrador.
and
Hop Hideout. We're part of the Women in Beer
thing.
showcase.
Yeah, we're in that.
Nice.
So that'd be
Yay.
lovely.
We tend to have, like in London, we tend to have beers at like the Cock Tavern a lot.
Yeah.
Free
Free trading.
trading up in Newcastle.
Oh, if you're ever in Plymouth, we're
Vessel.
at Vessel, which is kind of like,
Brilliant.
I would say that's if someone was like, where can you always find our
Yeah.
beers?
That's
The salmon
and then
Vessel's
like
been
in
amazing.
Cornwall, like North Street,
Yeah.
St. Ear down in St. Ives.
But yeah, so lots of places. But if your place doesn't have us,
Yeah, that's more
then we
important.
can then we can be there.
Yeah.
Rectify that problem. Basically,
Yeah.
rectify that
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
And if
Yeah,
you are a beer
If
drinker
you're trying to find
and
us
you
and
freak,
you can't, then that's where we come in.
exactly. And if you are that person that's like, I really want to try this beer and none of my locals have this on, go into your local and be like, hey guys, why don't you have this on? Go check it out. Go contact them. You really want this. This is great. All of them have been like literally so good. And this Hoppy Stout has been like so sessionable compared to, I have probably done most of this bottle. So go into your local, request it.
Yeah.
Tell other people about it. Tell them to request it. Get the numbers out there.
Yeah, right. Amazing.
Thank you so much for coming on. It has been a delight.
Oh, thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you know what I really loved about that conversation with Nia and James?
What was your favourite part?
I just really loved how they're always talking about being makers.
It was inspiring as a person that always wants to be, and that's why I was like, oh god, you guys are so cool. It's because I was like, I want to put my creative outlet somewhere, but then I just feel like I don't know what to do with my creativity and my energy. And they're like, yeah, when we feel that way, we just make things. I'm like,
Maker's gonna make, my friend. Like, and I feel like sometimes we call it craft beer, but I feel like people forget that it's like something that people are making with their hands, and they're
Artisanal.
designing it, and yeah, like I really love that. That's and just everything, like their ethos and their ideas and everything. It all comes together so nicely.
There's such a seamless blend of like individuals into family, into family, including the kids and the business. And I really, really love how it's so seamless. Like it's hard to tell where one of that starts and the other ends because it is so entangled in such a good way. And I think that, as I said when they were talking about some of the stuff that they've made and stuff, I was like, well, that makes it easier to connect with you, and I think it makes you want to connect with them even more. It makes me feel like I'm like, oh, when I've got this creative like energy, I'm like, I'll just go and play Stardew Valley, but I've got to go run my farm in bed.
What are you talking about? You've got a laser, like you've got a
my 3D pen. Don't call it a laser. I don't have a laser cutter.
I've got a laser cutter. That's something whole different.
Yeah, but it's like
I've 3D printer.
I haven't even learned how to design my own that keychain that I did that I still have to like work out fine tuning. I still have to fine tune that. I'm just
it's all a process. It's fine.
It's a process. I am just like, I love, like, these are all things that in my brain I'm like, I would love to do that. That would be cool. Where can I use this creativity? And then like hearing them, I'm like, I wish I were that cool. Like, honestly, I'm like,
eye roll. You can't hear it listening, but I'm eye rolling right now.
I love water, and I wish that I could also just be a water people, and just be like, oh, it's sunny out and I'm gonna go jump in the water, and I'm like, oh, they're living this, like, I know obviously again you go, oh, that's an ideal situation. And I know that obviously there's realities of that, but like I just look at that and I go, oh, it just seems so cool, and they are so nice and so down to earth and so genuine that like it would be hard to not want to support them, I think. like even before I had, spoken to them at all, I was like, like when I had first heard about them before the Raise the Bar stuff, I was like, that's so cool, I want to try them. And then like when I found out that they would Raise the Bar and they were going to be at Bristol Beer, I was like, I cannot wait. This is finally the moment I get to try them. Like, this is exciting. And then did not expect that I would talk about beer in Japan. So even though it was a fleeting moment, that was not on my bingo card, but I was like, please tell me. Please give me your Rex then. Where can I go? I've never been. Please tell me.
I also really enjoyed talking about like what success looks like for them.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, and I think this is a wonderful lesson for all of us. Like, your success doesn't have to look the same as everybody else's. Like, you don't have to be aiming for global domination. Like, if that's what you want, cool. But that's not success for everybody. Like, being able to walk to work, the kids can walk to where you work from school, you can pay your mortgage, and you can, the sun's out, let's go to the beach. That sounds like amazing success to me. Like, I love that.
Like I said, it's just that was part of what I was like, oh, they just sound so cool. Like, just part of that, I'm like, I find it quite inspiring. And I know that people probably listen to this and be like, are you just bullshitting? Because like, no, genuinely, like as I was listening to them, I was just like, it sounds really cool, just really inspiring. And I'm like, I want to get my creative juices flowing. I want, like, this to me, that's the life that I want to live. But then I'm like, I know I can't. Because I would not be half as I would not be even remotely as successful, because I think I would be like, yeah, this is a really great idea, and then I'd be like, I don't know what to do.
But you're the business.
I'm the
person,
ideas.
right?
I'm the ideas
You're the
person.
ideas and the business person, the organised person. You need the creative.
I need
person.
that. No, so I'm the creative person. I need the person that's able to like get in and be like, I will brew the beer. Because Rick is not the person that's like, I will get in and brew the beer. I'm the ideas and I can execute. Like, I can tell, like, I can do that execution of the creativity, but two project managers, neither of us can brew beer, so we cannot even be remotely as cool, unfortunately. So, but that's why I was like, are you ever going to open it up to visitors? Because it would be like really cool.
We're friends
I now want to go.
visit.
I now want to go to the places that they're talking about food wise. I'm like, I like food. I could eat. I could drink. What are we doing?
Tori, if you want people to recommend places where you can get Ideal Day beer or great food places
or food and drink, but specifically, like if you've seen Ideal Day on the Ideal Day Family Brewery and they also do good beer, good food, baked goods. I'll take baked goods as well. Anywhere I can get
really good bread.
The trifecta, good bread, good food, and Ideal. Let me know. You can find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism, or you can email me at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on my website, adventuresinoptimism.com, which I've put one post on. But I will have there's a second one that's been drafted for a month now, and I just need to get around to editing it. And when it's edited, it's going to blow minds. Quite frankly, if I'm honest. And I've got a trip to Prague coming up. So the first post that I did was about our beer spa, and we obviously did a podcast episode about that. You can check that out, and I'll tell you where you can check that out in a minute. But I am going to Prague, and I have booked in. So it was originally going to be Budapest, changed it up. Scratch that, reverse it. I'm going to Prague now. And I booked in a beer spa, and this also has a hop sauna. So it's like, I'm excited to talk about that experience compared to the other ones. So, you're going to have to go on the website to find out what my feelings are on that. But if you want to find out where we've talked about, you want to listen to this, you want to see more about, Ideal Day, or you want to know about, the beer spa that we did, you can find both of us at A Woman's Brew on Instagram, Facebook, or you can email us at awomansbrewpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go on our brand new website, which there are still some teething issues, but I think I fixed the last batch of issues. Good. I didn't fix it, my friend fixed it, but that is awomansbrewpod.beer .beer. Very exciting. Very excited about that one.
Don't panic. The link will be in the show notes. It's also in our bios and all of that jazz.
And if people want to talk to you about, they've heard from Nia and James about the creative stuff that they've been doing. We know you're quite creative. We talked about National Book. What's it? National
World Book Day.
World Book Day. World Book
Yeah.
Day. I've never participated in that because we don't do that in the US. So that was
World
very.
Book Day is great.
I only know about it from British stuff. People want to talk to you about any of those things because I know that those are all things that you would talk about. Where can people find you?
You can come talk to me. I'm Love Beer Learning on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well, but you're probably going to get hold of me on Instagram easier. Or you can come to my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. I've got a blog there. I haven't updated it in a while, but go over and have a look. Or you can email me lovebeerlearning@gmail.com.
Before we go, big announcement. We're only doing it. We've dropped this down to bi-weekly. We didn't care about your feedback.
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly?
Bi-monthly, because bi-weekly is 2 times a week.
Oh, see, there's 2 different ways you can use bi-weekly. I've heard it used both ways. Either twice a week or every other week. I used it the second one. But bi-monthly, yeah, that as well.
2 times a week.
We asked for your feedback and then we realised we can't wait for your feedback. So
we're just going to do it.
It's just happened.
The universe conspired and told us that this is what we should
people
do.
Were ill. People were busy. It just didn't happen, basically. So we took the universe at its face value and we have dropped it down. And I guess our feeling is we can always bring it back up if we need to.
Yeah.
So let us know. We will actually listen to what your feedback is.
Yeah, if there's a riot, then we'll see what we can do about it.
Yeah, if people are really upset about it. But
on that note, I'm going to go finish this delicious Hoppy Stout.
The stout is so good.
Cheers.
Cheers.